You know that moment when you're sitting alone at 2 a.m., scrolling through old photos, and you realize everything has changed? The life you planned, the dreams you chased, the people who promised forever, none of it looks the same anymore. And the hardest part isn't even the pain itself. It's accepting that your old life is gone, really gone, not coming back. This is where most people get stuck. They know something needs to change, but they're terrified to let go of what was. Let me be honest with you. I'm not here to sell you some quick fix miracle. I'm not going to tell you that 3 deep breaths and a gratitude journal will magically rebuild your life. What I want to share with you is something deeper, something real. Because if you're reading this right now, chances are you've been through something that shook your entire foundation. Maybe it was a breakup that left you questioning everything you thought you knew about love. Maybe you lost a job you poured your soul into, or a friendship that felt unbreakable just crumbled overnight. Maybe someone you loved walked away, or worse, they stayed but became a stranger. Whatever brought you here, I see you, and I want you to know this isn't the end of your story. This is actually where the real story begins. See, rebuilding your life isn't about getting back to who you were. It's about becoming who you're meant to be. And that starts with one brutal, beautiful truth: acceptance. Not the passive kind where you just shrug and say, "It is what it is." I'm talking about the kind of acceptance that requires courage. The kind that makes you look at the wreckage of your old life and say, "Yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt like hell. And now I'm going to use this to build something stronger." Most of us resist this step. We bargain with reality. If only I had done this differently. If they would just come back. If I could go back to that moment and change my decision. We replay the past like a movie we're trying to rewrite. But here's what no one tells you. You can't edit the past. No amount of regret, no amount of wishing, no amount of late-night overthinking will change what already happened. And while you're stuck in this mental loop, you're not moving forward. Physically, maybe you're going through the motions, waking up, going to work, smiling when you're supposed to. But emotionally, you're frozen in a moment that's already over. I want you to think about something. Imagine you're driving on a highway. Your windshield is huge, clear, giving you a full view of where you're heading. But your rearview mirror? It's small. You glance at it occasionally to stay aware, but you don't stare at it. Because if you do, you'll crash. Life works the same way. Your past deserves a glance, to learn, to understand, to honor what was. But it doesn't deserve your constant focus, not when there's an entire road ahead of you. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but you don't understand how much I lost. You don't know what I went through. And you're right. I don't know your specific pain, but I do know this. Every single person who has ever rebuilt their life started from a place of loss. They started from rock bottom, from heartbreak, from failure, from betrayal. And the one thing they all had in common wasn't that they avoided pain. It's that they decided pain wouldn't be the end of their story. Acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It doesn't mean you approve of it, or that it didn't hurt, or that you've forgiven everyone involved. Acceptance simply means, this is my reality now, and I have 2 choices. I can fight this reality and stay stuck, or I can accept it and start building. That's it. It's not about being weak or giving up. It's about being smart enough to know that you can't win a battle against the past. The past already won the moment it became the past. Your power is in the present. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're holding a heavy box. Inside this box is everything from your old life, every memory, every regret, every what if, every person who left, every dream that didn't work out. And you're carrying this box everywhere, to work, to social events, to bed. It's exhausting, right? Your arms are tired, your back hurts. You can barely move forward because this box is weighing you down. Now imagine someone tells you you can put the box down. Your first reaction might be fear. But if I put it down, what will I have left? This box is all I know, and that's the trap. We hold on to our pain because at least it's familiar. At least it's something. But here's the truth. Putting down the box doesn't mean you're forgetting what's inside. It just means you're no longer letting it control your every move. You're creating space. Space for new experiences. Space for new people. Space for a new version of yourself. And that space, that empty, scary, uncomfortable space, is actually where all the magic happens. Because you can't fill a cup that's already overflowing with the past. When you finally accept that your old life is over, something shifts inside you. It's subtle at first. You might not even notice it right away. But slowly, you start to feel lighter. Your mind isn't constantly replaying old conversations. You're not analyzing every detail of what went wrong. You start to see possibilities instead of just problems. You start to ask different questions. Not, why did this happen to me, but what can I do now? Not, how do I get back to normal, but what does my new normal look like? This is where the real work begins, because acceptance is just the first step. It opens the door. But you still have to walk through it. And walking through it means making a conscious decision every single day to move forward. Some days, it'll feel natural. You'll wake up with energy, with hope, with a sense of purpose. Other days, you'll wake up and the weight of everything will hit you all over again. You'll question if you're making progress. You'll feel like you're back at square one. And that's okay. Healing isn't linear. It's messy. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes 3 steps back. But as long as you keep choosing to move forward, you're winning. Let me be real with you for a second. There will be moments when memories hit you out of nowhere, a song on the radio, a scent in the air, a place you used to go together, and suddenly it feels like you're drowning all over again. Your chest tightens, your eyes water, and you think, I thought I was over this. But that doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. It means you loved deeply, you cared deeply, you invested deeply. And those memories will always be part of you. The goal isn't to erase them. The goal is to change your relationship with them, to let them exist without controlling you, to remember without being paralyzed by the remembering. Here's something powerful I want you to understand. Acceptance is a practice, not a destination. You don't accept something once and you're done. You accept it again and again. Every time doubt creeps in, every time you catch yourself slipping back into what-if mode, every time you feel the urge to reach out to someone who's no longer good for you. In those moments, you remind yourself, the past is over. I'm focused on what's ahead. And each time you do this, you're rewiring your brain. You're training yourself to let go. You're building the muscle of resilience. Now, I want to talk about something uncomfortable: guilt. A lot of people feel guilty for moving on. Like if they start to feel happy again, they're betraying their past. They're dishonoring what they lost. They're forgetting someone they loved. So they sabotage themselves. They keep one foot in the past because they think that's loyalty. But let me ask you this. Does staying stuck honor anything? Does refusing to heal bring anyone back? Does punishing yourself change the outcome? No. The most powerful way to honor your past is to build a future that makes all that pain worth it. To become someone so strong, so whole, so at peace that your past self would be proud. That's not betrayal. That's transformation. Think about a caterpillar. When it goes into the cocoon, it doesn't just grow wings. It completely dissolves. Its entire structure breaks down into liquid. And then, from that liquid, a butterfly forms. It's not the same creature with a few upgrades. It's a completely new being. That's what rebuilding your life looks like. You're not patching up the old version of yourself. You're dissolving the old identity and allowing a new one to emerge. And just like the caterpillar, this process happens in the dark, in isolation, in discomfort, but it's necessary. Because you can't become a butterfly while still clinging to the safety of being a caterpillar. So where do you start? You start small. You start with one honest moment where you say out loud or write down, "My old life is over," and that's okay. You don't have to believe it fully yet. You just have to say it, because words have power. They create intention, and intention creates action. Once you've accepted this truth, even if it's just 10% acceptance at first, you can start to redirect your energy. Instead of spending hours thinking about what went wrong, you spend that time thinking about what you want to build. Instead of stalking your ex's social media or replaying old arguments, you invest that energy into yourself, into learning, into growing, into healing. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. Some days, you'll feel like you're making incredible progress. Other days, you'll feel like you're drowning. But progress isn't measured by how you feel in a single moment. It's measured by the direction you're moving over time. Are you slowly becoming more at peace? Are you slowly regaining your sense of self? Are you slowly believing in your future again? If the answer is yes, even if it's a shaky, uncertain yes, then you're doing it right. One more thing before we move forward. I need you to give yourself permission. Permission to grieve what you lost. Permission to feel angry, sad, confused, lost. Permission to not have it all figured out. And most importantly, permission to move on. You don't need anyone else's approval. You don't need closure from the person who hurt you. You don't need the universe to give you a sign. You just need to decide. I'm ready to rebuild, not because everything is perfect, but because I deserve a life that feels good again. Acceptance is your foundation. Without it, everything else you try to build will crumble. But with it, you're unstoppable. Because once you accept reality, you stop wasting energy fighting it. You stop living in fantasy. You stop waiting for someone to save you. And you start becoming your own hero. You start realizing that the power was inside you all along. You just needed to stop looking backward long enough to see it. So take a deep breath. Look at where you are right now. Not where you wish you were, not where you used to be. Where you are right now, in this moment. And say this to yourself: I accept where I am. I accept what happened, and I'm ready to build something new. Because once you do that, everything changes. The door to your new life opens, and all you have to do is stepped through. Now, let's get practical for a moment, because acceptance isn't just a feeling, it's a series of actions. It's what you do when you wake up and the first thought in your mind is about the past. It's how you respond when someone asks you how you're doing and you have to decide whether to be honest or just say, "I'm fine." It's the moment you choose to unfollow that person on social media instead of torturing yourself with their updates. It's deleting the text thread you've read 100 times. It's boxing up the items that remind you of what was and putting them somewhere you can't see them every day. These might seem like small things, insignificant even, but they're not. They're declarations. Every time you make one of these choices, you're telling the universe, and more importantly, yourself, "I'm serious about moving forward." And the universe listens. Your subconscious listens. Your energy shifts, because energy follows attention. Where you put your focus is where your life will go. Keep staring at the wreckage, and you'll stay in the wreckage. Turn your gaze toward the horizon, and you'll start walking toward it. Let me share something with you. There's a concept in psychology called the Zeigarnik effect. It's the idea that our brains are wired to remember unfinished tasks more than completed ones. That's why breakups, failures, and losses haunt us so much. Our brain sees them as unfinished. We didn't get closure. We didn't get the ending we wanted. So our mind keeps going back, trying to complete the story. But here's the thing. Some stories don't get neat endings. Some chapters close abruptly. Some people leave without explanation. Some dreams just don't work out. And that's okay. You can give yourself closure. You can write the ending yourself. It might not be the ending you wanted, but it's the ending that allows you to move on. How do you do that? You create a ritual, something symbolic that marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Maybe you write a letter to your past self, thanking them for everything they survived, and then you burn it. Maybe you create a playlist of songs that remind you of that time, listen to it one last time, and then delete it. Maybe you take yourself out to dinner, alone, and raise a glass to the person you used to be and the person you're becoming. It doesn't matter what the ritual is. What matters is the intention behind it. You're consciously choosing to close the door, not because you hate what's behind it, but because you're ready to see what's ahead. And here's what happens when you truly accept and let go. You start to notice things you couldn't see before. Opportunities that were always there, but you were too distracted to notice. People who genuinely care about you, but you were too focused on the ones who didn't. Strengths within yourself that you forgot you had because you were too busy replaying your weaknesses. It's like when you buy a new car and suddenly you see that same model everywhere. It was always there. You just weren't paying attention. Same thing with your life. The possibilities were always there. You just couldn't see them because your vision was clouded by the past. Now, I want to address something important. Some of you might be thinking, but what if I accept this and nothing gets better? What if I let go and I'm still miserable? And I get it. That fear is real. But here's the truth. Holding on guarantees you'll stay stuck. Letting go doesn't guarantee immediate happiness, but it guarantees movement. And movement, even if it's slow, even if it's painful, is progress. Stagnation is the real enemy. Because when you're not moving forward, you're actually moving backward. Time doesn't stop. Life doesn't pause. The world keeps spinning, and you're either evolving with it or getting left behind. Think about it this way. Imagine you're in a river, holding on to a rock. The current is strong, pulling at you, and you're exhausted from fighting it. But you're terrified to let go because you don't know where the river will take you. So you hold on tighter. Your arms are shaking. Your grip is slipping. And you're so focused on not letting go that you don't see the shore just a few feet away. All you'd have to do is release the rock, let the current guide you, and you'd drift right to safety. But you can't see that because you're too busy clinging to what you know. That rock is your past. The current is life moving forward, and the shore is your new beginning. Let go. Trust the process. You'll get to where you need to be. Acceptance also means accepting yourself, not just the situation, but who you are in this moment. Maybe you're not as strong as you thought you'd be. Maybe you've cried more than you ever imagined. Maybe you've made mistakes while trying to cope. Maybe you've pushed people away or clung too hard to the wrong ones. Maybe you've said things you regret or done things you're ashamed of. And that's okay. You're not supposed to handle trauma perfectly. There's no guidebook for heartbreak, no manual for loss. You're figuring it out as you go. And the fact that you're still here, still trying, still reading this, that's enough. You're enough. Exactly as you are right now, in this messy, imperfect, beautifully human moment. Self-compassion is crucial here. So many people beat themselves up for not getting over it fast enough. They compare their healing to someone else's. They think, it's been 3 months, I should be fine by now. But healing doesn't work on a timeline. There's no expiration date on grief. No deadline for moving on. You heal at your own pace. And anyone who tries to rush you or judge you for taking your time doesn't understand the depth of what you're going through. So be gentle with yourself. Talk to yourself the way you talk to a best friend going through the same thing. You wouldn't tell them they're weak or pathetic or taking too long. You'd tell them they're brave, that it's okay to feel what they're feeling, that they're doing better than they think. Extend that same grace to yourself. Here's another truth bomb. Acceptance doesn't mean you won't have bad days. You will. There will be days when you wake up and the weight of everything crashes down on you all over again. Days when you feel like you made zero progress. Days when you question if you'll ever feel normal again. And on those days, you don't need to pretend you're okay. You don't need to force positivity. You just need to survive the day. Get through it however you can. Watch a movie, call a friend, go for a walk. Cry if you need to. Sleep if you need to. And when the day is over, remind yourself, I made it through another day. That counts, because it does. Every day you survive is a victory. Every morning you choose to get up is an act of courage. But here's the beautiful part. Those bad days will start to come less frequently. At first, maybe you have 10 bad days and 1 okay day. Then it becomes 8 bad days and 2 okay days. Then 5 and 5. Then 2 bad days and 5 good days. And one day, maybe months from now, maybe a year from now, you'll realize you've had an entire week where you didn't think about the past, where you felt genuinely happy, where you felt like yourself again. And that's when you'll know you've done it. You've rebuilt. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, steadily, powerfully. Let me be clear about something. Rebuilding your life doesn't mean you become a completely different person. You don't lose yourself in the process. You actually find yourself, the real you, the you that existed before the pain, before the disappointment, before the heartbreak, but also a stronger version, a wiser version, a version that's been through fire and came out tempered, not destroyed. You're still you, just leveled up. And here's what's wild. Sometimes the life you rebuild is better than the one you lost. I know that's hard to believe right now. When you're in the thick of it, it feels impossible that anything good could come from this pain. But I've seen it happen countless times. People who lose their job and it forces them to pursue the career they actually wanted. People who go through a devastating breakup and it teaches them what they actually deserve in a partner. People who hit rock bottom and it becomes the foundation for the most incredible comeback story. Your current chapter might be dark, but that doesn't mean the whole book is tragic. Plot twists happen, and sometimes the best ones come after the worst moments. So, as we close this first part, I want you to make a commitment, not to me, but to yourself. Commit to acceptance, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but right now, today, in this moment. Say it out loud. I accept that my old life is over. I accept that I can't change the past. I accept that I'm in pain, and that's okay. And I accept that I have the power to rebuild. Feel the weight of those words. Let them sink in, because they're not just words. They're your declaration of independence from the past. They're your first step toward freedom. In the next part, we're going to talk about what comes after acceptance. We're going to dive into the mindset shift that changes everything, moving from why me to what now. We're going to explore how to take back control when everything feels out of control. But for now, just sit with this. Let acceptance wash over you. Let yourself feel whatever comes up. And know that you're not alone in this. Millions of people have walked this path before you, and every single one of them started exactly where you are now. At the beginning, scared but willing, broken but hopeful, lost but determined to find their way. You've got this. I believe in you. And soon you'll believe in yourself again too. Okay? So you've accepted that your old life is over. You've made peace with the fact that you can't rewind time or change what happened. That's huge. Seriously, give yourself credit for that, because most people never get past this first step. They spend years, sometimes decades, stuck in denial or bargaining with reality. But not you. You've crossed that bridge. Now comes the next critical shift, and honestly, this is where everything starts to click into place. This is where you stop being a passenger in your own life and become the driver. Here's the shift. You need to stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Let me explain why this matters so much. When something painful happens, a breakup, a job loss, a betrayal, a failure, our brain immediately goes into analysis mode. We want answers. We want reasons. We want someone or something to blame. So we ask ourselves over and over, why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? Why am I the unlucky one? And look, that's a natural response. I'm not saying you're wrong for feeling that way, but here's the problem. Why me? Is a dead-end question. It doesn't lead anywhere productive. It just keeps you spinning in circles, replaying the same thoughts, the same scenarios, the same pain. Think about it. When you ask, why me? What answers are you actually looking for? You're looking for someone to blame. Maybe yourself, maybe someone else, maybe the universe, maybe bad luck. And even if you find someone to blame, what does that give you? Does it change anything? Does it undo what happened? Does it make the pain disappear? No. All it does is keep you stuck in victim mode where life is happening to you and you have no control. And I need you to hear this. You do have control. Maybe not over what happened to you, but absolutely over what happens next. This is where "what now" comes in. It's a completely different question because it shifts your focus from the past to the present, from the problem to the solution, from what you lost to what you can build. When you ask yourself, "What now?" your brain switches gears. Instead of dwelling on why something happened, it starts looking for what you can do about it. It's forward-focused, it's action-oriented, and most importantly, it puts you back in the driver's seat. Let me give you a real example. Let's say you just got fired from your job. If you sit there asking, "Why me? Why did they let me go? Was it something I said? Was it politics? Was I not good enough?" You're going to spiral. You'll replay every meeting, every email, every interaction, looking for clues. And maybe you'll find some answers, or maybe you won't. But either way, you're not moving forward. You're just torturing yourself with questions that don't change the fact that you're unemployed. Now imagine you ask a different question. What now? Suddenly, your brain shifts. Okay, I lost my job. That sucks. But what can I do right now? I can update my resume. I can reach out to my network. I can apply to new positions. I can learn a new skill that makes me more marketable. I can even use this as an opportunity to pivot into a field I've always been curious about. See the difference? Same situation, same pain, but a completely different mindset. One keeps you powerless. The other empowers you. And here's the beautiful thing about "what now?" It works for literally any situation. Relationship ended? What now? You can work on yourself, rediscover your independence, focus on your goals, meet new people. Lost a friendship? What now? You can evaluate what you want in friendships moving forward, invest in the relationships that do work, or make space for new connections. Health setback? What now? You can research treatment options, change your lifestyle, find support groups. Take it one day at a time. The situation doesn't magically disappear, but your relationship to it transforms. You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You're a creator of solutions. Now, I want to be honest with you. Making this shift from "why me" to "what now" isn't easy, especially at first. Your brain has been conditioned to ask, "Why me?" for years, maybe your whole life. It's a habit, and breaking a habit takes conscious effort. In the beginning, you'll catch yourself slipping back into victim mode. Something will trigger you, and immediately your mind will go, "Why does this always happen to me? Why can't I catch a break?" And that's okay. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to catch yourself when it happens and consciously redirect. Wait, "why me?" isn't helping. Let me ask a better question. What can I do right now? At first, this will feel forced. It'll feel like you're faking it, but stick with it, because over time, it becomes automatic. Your brain starts to rewire itself. Instead of defaulting to victimhood, it defaults to problem solving. Instead of feeling helpless, you start feeling capable. And that shift from helpless to capable is everything. That's where confidence comes from. That's where resilience is built. That's where you reclaim your power. Let's talk about power for a second, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around it. When I say reclaim your power, I don't mean you suddenly have the ability to control everything in your life. You don't. None of us do. Life is unpredictable. People will let you down. Plans will fall apart. Unexpected challenges will arise. That's just reality. But here's what you do have power over: your response, your attitude, your choices, your effort, your perspective. Those things are entirely within your control. And when you focus your energy on what you can control instead of what you can't, you become unstoppable. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people go through the exact same breakup, same relationship, same ending, same heartbreak. Person A spends months asking, "Why me?" They obsess over what went wrong. They stalk their ex on social media. They replay every conversation, every fight, every moment, trying to figure out where it all fell apart. They talk to their friends about it constantly. They can't sleep. They can't focus. Their entire world revolves around this one painful event. And 6 months later, they're still stuck, still heartbroken, still asking why. Person B, on the other hand, feels the same initial pain. They grieve, they cry, they're angry and confused and hurt. But after a few weeks, they make a conscious decision to shift their focus. They ask themselves, what now? They start going to the gym. They reconnect with friends they'd neglected. They pick up a hobby they'd abandoned. They go to therapy to work through their emotions. They set new goals for themselves, and 6 months later, they're in a completely different place. They're stronger. They're happier. They've grown. Same situation, completely different outcome. Why? Because of the question they chose to ask. Now, I'm not saying person B didn't have moments where they fell back into why me thinking. Of course they did. But the difference is they didn't stay there. They caught themselves and redirected over and over until what now became their default. Here's another truth. What now doesn't just change your mindset, it changes your energy. Have you ever noticed how some people just seem to radiate this magnetic energy? They've been through hell, but they're not bitter. They're not defeated. They're vibrant. They're engaged with life. They're inspiring. That's because they've mastered the art of focusing on what's next instead of what was. And people are drawn to that energy. Opportunities open up. Connections deepen. Life starts to flow again, not because their problems disappeared, but because they stopped letting their problems define them. Let me share something personal with you. There was a time in my life when I felt completely stuck. I'd just gone through a series of setbacks, career stuff, relationship stuff, personal stuff, all at once. And for a while, I fell into that why me trap. I felt so sorry for myself. I kept thinking, I'm a good person. I work hard. I try to do the right thing. So why is all this happening to me? And the more I asked that question, the worse I felt. I was miserable. My friends were getting tired of hearing me complain. I was getting tired of hearing myself complain. Then one day, someone I respected said something that shifted everything for me. They said, you can ask, why me, for the rest of your life and never get a satisfying answer. Or you can ask, what now? And actually build something. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was wasting so much energy on a question that had no good answer. So I made a choice. I started asking, what now? Every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And slowly, things started to change. Not because my circumstances magically improved overnight, but because I did. I started taking action, small steps at first, then bigger ones, and before I knew it, I was in a completely different place. Mentally, emotionally, physically, I'd rebuilt. Not because I had all the answers, but because I stopped waiting for them. Here's something else I want you to understand. Asking, "What now?" doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. It doesn't mean you bypass the pain or pretend everything's fine. You still need to feel what you're feeling. You still need to grieve, to be angry, to be sad. That's part of being human. But the difference is you don't set up camp in those emotions. You don't build a house there. You feel them, you process them, and then you ask, okay, I've felt this. Now what? What's my next move? This is where a lot of people get stuck. They think that moving forward means they're not honoring their pain. Like if they start to feel better, they're betraying themselves or the situation. But that's not true. Moving forward doesn't dishonor your pain. It honors your strength. It says, yes, this hurt. Yes, it was unfair. Yes, I didn't deserve it. And I'm going to use this experience to become someone even stronger. That's not betrayal. That's transformation. Now let's get tactical. How do you actually make this shift in real time? Here's a simple exercise I want you to try. The next time you catch yourself spiraling into why me, thinking, stop. Literally pause whatever you're doing. Take a deep breath. And then ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What is within my control right now? Not what you wish was in your control. Not what should be in your control. What actually is. Maybe it's your next action. Maybe it's who you spend time with. Maybe it's how you spend the next hour. Identify it. 2. What's one small step I can take today to move forward? Notice I said small. You're not trying to solve everything at once. You're just trying to take one tiny step. Maybe it's making your bed. Maybe it's sending one job application. Maybe it's going for a 10-minute walk. Just one thing. 3. What can I learn from this situation? Not, what's the universe trying to teach me? Because, honestly, sometimes there's no grand lesson. But what can you personally take away? Maybe it's a boundary you need to set. Maybe it's a pattern you need to break. Maybe it's a strength you didn't know you had. Find it. These 3 questions will shift your brain from victim mode to creator mode, from passive to active, from stuck to moving. And if you do this consistently, every time you catch yourself falling into why me, it will change your life. I'm not exaggerating. This one shift has more power than you realize. Let me tell you what happens when you truly embrace what now. Thinking. You start to see every setback as a setup for a comeback. Every closed door as a redirection toward the right one. Every ending as a new beginning. You stop fearing failure because you know it's just feedback. You stop fearing rejection because you know it's just protection from what's not meant for you. You stop fearing change because you know it's the only path to growth. And suddenly, life doesn't feel like something that's happening to you. It feels like something you're actively creating. And here's the crazy part. When you shift your mindset like this, the people around you notice. Some will be inspired. They'll ask you how you're staying so positive or so strong. And you can share this with them. But some people won't like it. They'll feel threatened by your growth. They'll try to pull you back into the why me mindset because misery loves company. And this is where you have to be strong. You have to protect your new way of thinking like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. You'll also notice that opportunities start to show up, not because the universe suddenly decided to favor you, but because you're finally in a mental and emotional state to see them and act on them. When you're stuck in why me, you're so focused on what went wrong that you miss what's going right. But when you're in what now mode, you're alert, you're present, you're ready. And that makes all the difference. Before we move on, I want to address one more thing. Some of you might be thinking, but what if I don't know what to do next? What if I ask, what now? And I have no idea what the answer is. And that's okay. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to have a perfect plan. You just have to be willing to try something, anything, because action creates clarity. You can't think your way into a new life. You have to act your way into it. Even if you take the wrong step, at least you're moving. And movement, even in the wrong direction, teaches you something. Stagnation teaches you nothing. So here's your challenge for this part. The next time something difficult happens, catch yourself before you spiral into why me. Take a breath and ask instead, what now? What can I control? What can I do? What can I learn? Start small. Be patient with yourself, but be consistent, because this shift from victim to creator is the foundation of everything else we're going to talk about. Without it, nothing else works. But with it, you become unstoppable. All right? Now we need to talk about something that's going to be uncomfortable. Something that most self-help content skips over because it's messy and it makes people feel guilty. But if we're being real here, and we are, this is one of the most critical parts of rebuilding your life. And it's this: not everyone can come with you on this journey. In fact, some people need to be left behind. And I don't mean that in a cruel way. I mean it in a survival way. Because the truth is, you can't grow in the same environment that broke you. You can't heal while surrounded by the same energy that drained you. And you can't become the person you're meant to be while clinging to relationships that no longer serve you. Let's start with a hard truth. Your growth will make some people uncomfortable. When you start changing, when you start setting boundaries, prioritizing yourself, chasing your goals, saying no to things that don't align with your values, people will notice. And not everyone is going to be happy about it. Some people liked you better when you were broken, when you were easier to control, when you were available 24/7, when you said yes to everything, when you didn't challenge them or call them out, when you made yourself small so they could feel big. And now that you're stepping into your power, they feel threatened. Here's what I need you to understand. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. You are not responsible for making other people feel comfortable with your growth. You're not responsible for staying small so they can stay comfortable. You're not responsible for dimming your light so theirs doesn't feel so faint. Your only responsibility is to yourself, to your healing, to your future. And if that means some people can't handle the new version of you, that's on them, not you. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but these are people I've known for years, people I care about. How can I just cut them off? And I hear you. This isn't about being cold or heartless. This isn't about burning bridges for the sake of it. This is about recognizing the difference between people who genuinely support your growth and people who subtly, or not so subtly, undermine it. And once you start paying attention, you'll see the difference clearly. Let me break it down for you. There are essentially 3 types of people in your life when you're trying to rebuild. Type 1, the supporters. These are the people who see you struggling and they show up. They don't judge you for where you are. They don't rush you to get over it. They don't minimize your pain or compare it to someone else's. They listen. They encourage. They celebrate your small wins. They believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. They give you space when you need it and show up when you ask. These people are rare, and when you find them, you hold on to them. You invest in those relationships. You let them know how much they mean to you, because these are the people who will help carry you through the darkness. Type 2, the neutrals. These are people who aren't actively helping or hurting. They're just there. Maybe they're casual friends, acquaintances, co-workers. They're not invested enough to support you deeply, but they're also not dragging you down. And honestly, these people are fine. You don't need to cut them off. You just don't need to pour a lot of energy into these relationships right now. Keep them at a comfortable distance and focus your energy where it actually matters. Type 3, the drainers. And then there are the drainers, the people who, whether they realize it or not, are actively working against your growth. These are the people who make fun of your goals or call you too serious when you're trying to improve yourself. Constantly bring up your past mistakes or remind you of who you used to be. Guilt trip you for not being available the way you used to be. Compete with you instead of celebrating you. Drain your energy with constant negativity, drama, or chaos. Dismiss your feelings or make everything about themselves. Pressure you to engage in behaviors you're trying to move away from. Partying, gossiping, unhealthy habits. Subtly undermine your confidence with backhanded compliments or just joking insults. If you're being honest with yourself, you already know who these people are. You can feel it. Every time you interact with them, you leave feeling worse than when you arrived. Drained, frustrated, questioning yourself, doubting your path. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter if they mean well. It doesn't matter if they're going through something too. It doesn't matter if you've known them since kindergarten. If the relationship is toxic, it needs to be addressed. And sometimes that means letting it go. Now, letting go doesn't always mean a dramatic confrontation. It doesn't mean sending a long text explaining why you're cutting them off, unless you want to, but honestly, you don't owe anyone that. Sometimes it just means quietly creating distance, responding less frequently, declining invitations, unfollowing or muting them on social media, redirecting conversations when they veer into territory that drains you. You're not being mean. You're being protective. Protective of your energy, your peace, your progress. Because here's what a lot of people don't talk about. Your energy is finite. You only have so much of it in a day. And every interaction, every relationship, every commitment either deposits energy or withdraws it. The drainers, they're making massive withdrawals. And if you're not careful, you'll spend all your energy managing their drama, soothing their egos, or defending your choices, and you'll have nothing left for yourself, nothing left for your healing, nothing left for your goals. And that's how you stay stuck. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine you're trying to get healthier. You're working out, eating better, getting more sleep. You're making real progress, but you have a friend who constantly wants to go out for drinks, orders pizza when you're together, and makes comments like, "Oh, you're being so boring lately. One drink won't kill you. You're obsessed with this health stuff." At first, you might brush it off, but over time, these comments chip away at your resolve. You start feeling guilty for prioritizing your health. You start second-guessing yourself. And eventually, you might even give in just to avoid the conflict or the judgment. That's what drainers do. They pull you back toward who you were because that version of you was more convenient for them. And if you let them, they will sabotage your progress without even realizing it. So you'll have a choice. Keep trying to please them and stay stuck, or create boundaries and keep moving forward. And I know which one serves you better. Now let's talk about boundaries, because this is where a lot of people struggle. Setting boundaries feels uncomfortable, especially if you're someone who's been a people pleaser your whole life. You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. You don't want to come across as selfish or cold. But here's the reality. Boundaries aren't selfish. Boundaries are self-respect. They're you saying, "I value myself enough to protect my energy, my time, and my peace." And anyone who has a problem with that is exactly the kind of person you need boundaries from. So what does a boundary actually look like? It's different for everyone, but here are some examples. I'm not available to talk every single day. I need space to focus on myself right now. I'd rather not discuss my personal life. Let's talk about something else. I'm not going out tonight. I'm prioritizing rest. I appreciate your concern, but I've got this handled. I need you to stop bringing up my past. It's not helpful. I'm no longer engaging in gossip or negativity. Let's keep things positive. Notice how none of these are mean. They're just clear. And that's the key. You don't need to be rude or aggressive. You just need to be firm. And if someone can't respect your boundaries, that tells you everything you need to know about whether they belong in your life right now. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Some people will get upset when you set boundaries. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed, and you have, for the better. They'll accuse you of thinking you're too good for them now. They'll play the victim. And this is where you have to stay strong, because their reaction is not about you. It's about them losing access to the version of you that they could manipulate, control, or take advantage of. And good. Let them lose that access. You're not that person anymore. I also want to address guilt, because guilt is the #1 reason people stay in toxic relationships longer than they should. You feel guilty for abandoning someone, guilty for putting yourself first, guilty for outgrowing a friendship, guilty for not being who you used to be. But let me ask you this. Where's their guilt for draining you, for not supporting you, for making your healing harder? Why is the guilt only on you? The truth is, loyalty to others should never come at the cost of betrayal to yourself. And staying in a relationship that's actively harming you, even if it's subtle, even if it's unintentional, is a form of self-betrayal. You deserve better. You deserve people who lift you up, not drag you down. And it's not selfish to choose that. It's necessary. Let me tell you what happens when you start removing the drainers from your life. At first, it feels lonely. You might look around and realize your circle has gotten a lot smaller, and that can be scary. But here's the thing. A small circle of real ones is infinitely better than a large circle of fake ones. Quality over quantity, always. And once you clear out the people who are holding you back, you make space for the people who will propel you forward. The right people. The people who get it. The people who are on the same wavelength as the new you. You'll also notice something else. You have more energy, more mental clarity, more peace, because you're no longer spending hours managing other people's emotions or defending your choices. You're investing that energy back into yourself, into your goals, into your growth, and that's when things really start to shift. Now, I want to be clear about something. This doesn't mean you only surround yourself with people who agree with you all the time or never challenge you. Healthy relationships involve disagreement, feedback, and growth. But there's a difference between someone challenging you because they want you to be better and someone challenging you because they want you to stay the same. Learn to tell the difference. Here's a good test. After you spend time with someone, how do you feel? Do you feel energized, inspired, supported, or do you feel drained, anxious, doubtful? Your body knows. Your gut knows. Listen to it. And one more thing. Sometimes the people you need to detach from are family. And I know that's a whole other level of complicated. Society tells us that family is everything, that blood is thicker than water, that you have to stick by a family no matter what. But here's the truth. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean they get unlimited access to your life. Doesn't mean they can treat you however they want. Doesn't mean you owe them your mental health. You can love your family from a distance. You can set boundaries with your family. You can limit contact with family members who are toxic, and you don't need to feel guilty about it. Let me share something with you. I had a friend, someone I'd known for over a decade. We'd been through so much together. But as I started working on myself, setting goals, getting my life together, I noticed a pattern. Every time I shared a win, they'd find a way to diminish it. Oh, that's cool, but did you hear about so-and-so? They just did something way bigger. Or they'd bring up something negative to kill the vibe. And every time I'd hang out with them, I'd leave feeling less than, like I wasn't doing enough, like I was falling behind. It was subtle, but it was constant. For a long time, I ignored it. I made excuses. Oh, they're just going through a tough time. They don't mean it like that. We've been friends forever. But eventually, I had to be honest with myself. This friendship was no longer serving me. It was holding me back. So I created distance. I stopped sharing my goals with them, stopped being available all the time. And you know what? They didn't even really notice, because the friendship had been one-sided for a while. I was giving way more than I was getting. And yeah, it hurt. It felt like losing a piece of my past, but it also felt like freedom, like I could finally breathe, like I wasn't constantly managing someone else's insecurities at the expense of my own growth. And in the space that friendship left, I found new people, people who genuinely celebrated me, people who inspired me, people who matched my energy instead of draining it. So here's what I want you to do. Take a moment and think about the people in your life right now. Really think about them. Who supports you? Who drains you? Who makes you feel good about yourself? Who makes you question yourself? And then make a decision. Decide who gets access to you moving forward. Decide where you're going to invest your energy and be ruthless about it. Not mean, just intentional. Because the people you surround yourself with will determine the direction of your life. If you surround yourself with people who are stuck, you'll stay stuck. If you surround yourself with people who are growing, you'll grow. It's that simple. Show me your 5 closest friends, and I'll show you your future. This isn't about being a snob or thinking you're better than anyone. It's about being strategic. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are your most valuable resources, and wasting them on people who don't value you is a losing game. So protect your energy like your life depends on it. Because, in a way, it does. Your energy determines your mood. Your mood determines your decisions. Your decisions determine your life. It all starts with who and what you allow into your space. And if you're worried about being alone, let me tell you something. Being alone is better than being in bad company. Solitude is where you rebuild. It's where you reconnect with yourself. It's where you figure out who you really are without everyone else's noise. And once you've done that work, the right people will show up. People who align with the new you. People who add to your life instead of subtracting from it. So don't be afraid to let go. Don't be afraid to walk away. Don't be afraid to choose yourself, because the people who are meant to be in your life will understand. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll support your growth. And the ones who don't, they were never really your people anyway. Okay? So we've covered acceptance. We've talked about shifting from why me to what now. We've discussed cutting off the people who drain your energy. Now, we need to go deeper. Because here's the thing that most people miss when they're trying to rebuild their life. They focus on fixing their situation instead of transforming their identity. And that's why they end up right back where they started, just in a different setting with different people, but the same patterns, the same problems, the same pain. Let me explain what I mean. When something goes wrong in your life, you lose your job, your relationship ends, you fail at something important, your first instinct is to fix the external situation. Get a new job. Find a new partner. Try again at the thing you failed at. And look, there's nothing wrong with taking action. You absolutely should. But if you're taking action with the same mindset, the same habits, the same identity that led to the problem in the first place, you're just setting yourself up to repeat the cycle. Think about it like this. Imagine your house gets destroyed in a storm. You could rebuild it exactly the way it was. Same materials, same structure, same foundation. And it might look nice for a while. But when the next storm comes, it's going to fall apart again because the foundation was never strong enough to begin with. Or you could take this opportunity to build something better, stronger foundation, better materials, smarter design, so that when the next storm comes, and it will come because life is full of storms, your house stands firm. That's what rebuilding your identity is about. It's not about patching up the old version of yourself. It's about becoming someone new, someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who doesn't make the same mistakes, someone who doesn't accept the same BS, someone who doesn't settle for less than they deserve. And that transformation doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intentional, consistent effort. So let's talk about identity. Your identity is essentially how you see yourself. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are. And whether you realize it or not, you're living according to that story every single day. If you see yourself as someone who's unlucky, you'll interpret every setback as proof that you're unlucky. If you see yourself as someone who always gets hurt in relationships, you'll unconsciously seek out people who confirm that belief. If you see yourself as someone who can't stick to anything, you'll quit the moment things get hard. Your identity is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Here's the problem. Most people's identities are built on their past, on their failures, on their traumas, on what other people have told them. I'm not good with money because I grew up poor. I'm bad at relationships because my parents divorced. I'm lazy because that's what my teacher always said. And listen, I'm not dismissing your experiences. Your past is real. Your pain is valid. But your past doesn't have to be your prison. You can acknowledge what happened to you without letting it define who you become. Rebuilding your identity means consciously choosing who you want to be, regardless of who you were. It means looking at the person you've been, the habits, the patterns, the beliefs, and deciding what stays and what goes. It means being brutally honest with yourself about the ways you've been complicit in your own suffering. Because here's a hard truth. Sometimes we're not just victims of our circumstances. Sometimes we're participants. And the sooner you acknowledge that, the sooner you can change it. Let me give you some examples of identity shifts that can completely transform your life. From I'm not a morning person to I'm someone who prioritizes my mornings. This might seem small, but it's huge. When you identify as not a morning person, you've already decided that waking up early is impossible for you. You've given yourself permission to hit snooze, to rush through your mornings, to start your day reactive instead of proactive. But when you shift your identity to I'm someone who prioritizes my mornings, suddenly waking up early isn't about fighting your nature. It's about living in alignment with who you are. From I always fail at relationships to I'm learning what I need in a healthy relationship. See the difference? One identity locks you into a pattern of failure. The other acknowledges your past while creating space for growth. One makes you a victim, the other makes you a student. From I'm broke to I'm building wealth. Money is one of the biggest areas where identity matters. If you identify as someone who's always broke, you'll make decisions that keep you broke. You'll spend impulsively. You'll avoid looking at your bank account. You'll tell yourself you're just not good with money. But if you shift your identity to someone who's building wealth, your behavior changes. You start tracking your spending. You look for opportunities to increase your income. You invest instead of just consume. Same person, different identity, different results. From I can't stick to anything to I'm building discipline. Notice I didn't say I'm disciplined, because that might feel like a lie if you're just starting. But I'm building discipline is something you can own right now. It acknowledges where you are while pointing toward where you're going. And every small action you take reinforces that new identity. Here's the thing about identity. It's not just about what you think. It's about what you do. You can't just tell yourself, I'm a healthy person while eating junk food every day and never exercising. Your actions have to match your identity. Or more accurately, your identity has to be built through your actions, because that's how your brain actually believes it. Not through affirmations or wishful thinking, but through evidence, through proof, through consistent behavior that aligns with who you say you want to be. This is where habits come in. Your daily habits are the building blocks of your identity. Every time you do something, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to be. Go to the gym? You're voting for, I'm someone who takes care of their body. Skip the gym? You're voting for, I'm someone who prioritizes comfort over growth. Read for 30 minutes? You're voting for, I'm someone who invests in learning. Scroll on social media for 30 minutes? You're voting for, I'm someone who wastes time on distractions. Now, missing one workout or scrolling one time doesn't define you, but patterns do. If you consistently make choices that align with your desired identity, eventually that identity becomes real. Your brain goes, oh, we do this now. This is who we are. And that's when change becomes effortless. You're no longer forcing yourself to work out or eat healthy or save money. You're just being who you are. But here's the catch. Building a new identity is uncomfortable because it requires you to act like someone you're not yet. It feels fake at first, like you're pretending, and that's exactly why most people quit. They try on a new identity for a week or two, it feels awkward, and they retreat back to who they were because at least that's familiar. Let me be real with you. You have to be okay with feeling like a fraud for a while. You have to be okay with the discomfort of not quite believing your own story yet. Because that's part of the process. When you first start working out, you don't feel like a fit person. You feel like someone who's struggling through workouts. But if you keep showing up, eventually your body changes, your strength increases, and one day you realize, wait, I actually am a fit person now. The identity catches up to the behavior. Same thing with any area of your life. Want to be confident? Start acting confident, even when you don't feel it. Stand up straight, make eye contact, speak clearly. At first, it'll feel like you're playing a role, but over time, your brain will rewire itself. The fake confidence becomes real confidence because you've proven to yourself through your actions that you can do hard things. Want to be financially stable? Start acting like someone who's financially stable. Track your money. Save a percentage of every paycheck, even if it's tiny. Say no to impulse purchases. At first, you'll feel like you're depriving yourself. But over time, you'll feel powerful because you're in control. And that control reinforces your new identity. Now, let's talk about standards, because this is crucial. Your identity is closely tied to what you're willing to accept in your life. And if your standards are low, your identity will match. If you accept being treated poorly, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who doesn't deserve better. If you accept mediocrity in your work, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who doesn't strive for excellence. If you accept chaos and drama in your relationships, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who thrives in dysfunction. Raising your standards is one of the fastest ways to shift your identity, and it starts with getting really clear on what you will and won't tolerate. Not in a judgmental way toward others, but in a protective way toward yourself. What kind of treatment do you deserve? What kind of effort are you willing to put in? What kind of life do you actually want to live? Here's an example. Let's say you've always been the person who says yes to everything. You're the reliable one, the one everyone calls when they need something. And on the surface, that seems like a good thing. But deep down, you're exhausted. You're resentful. You feel like people take advantage of you. So you decide to shift your identity. You decide you're no longer the person who says yes to everything. You're someone who values their time and energy. You're someone with boundaries. At first, this is going to feel wrong. Someone's going to ask you for a favor, and you're going to want to say yes because that's who you've always been. But you're going to take a breath, and you're going to say, I can't this time? And they might be surprised. They might even be annoyed. But you're going to stand firm because you're not that person anymore. And every time you hold that boundary, you're reinforcing your new identity. You're proving to yourself that you're capable of change. Here's another truth. Rebuilding your identity often means grieving the old one. Even if the old version of you wasn't serving you, it was still you. It was familiar. It was safe in its own way. And letting go of that, of the people pleaser, the victim, the self-sabotager, whoever you were, can feel like a loss. And that's okay. Let yourself feel that, but don't let it stop you from moving forward. I want to share something personal. There was a version of me that used to seek validation from everyone. I needed people to like me, to approve of me, to tell me I was doing a good job, and I built my whole identity around being likable. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I dimmed my opinions so I wouldn't make anyone uncomfortable. I prioritized keeping the peace over speaking my truth. And for a long time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. It was just who I was. But then I hit a point where that version of me wasn't working anymore. I was exhausted from trying to be everything to everyone. I was resentful. I felt invisible. So I made a decision. I was going to rebuild my identity. I was going to become someone who valued authenticity over approval. And let me tell you, it was terrifying because the first time I spoke up about something that mattered to me, knowing it might upset someone, I felt like I was going to crawl out of my skin. Every part of me wanted to backtrack, to soften it, to say, just kidding. But I didn't. I held my ground. And you know what happened? Some people didn't like it. Some people pulled away, and that hurt. But other people I didn't even expect, respected me more. They saw me as someone with a backbone, with integrity. And slowly, that new identity started to feel real. I wasn't pretending to be authentic. I was actually being authentic. And that shift changed everything. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to get really honest with yourself about who you've been. Not to beat yourself up, but to acknowledge it. Write it down if you need to. I've been someone who avoids conflict. I've been someone who settles for less than I deserve. I've been someone who makes excuses instead of taking action. Own it. All of it. And then decide who you're going to be instead. Not some fantasy version of yourself that's completely unrealistic, but a slightly better version, a version that's within reach if you're willing to put in the work. I'm becoming someone who communicates clearly, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm becoming someone who knows their worth and doesn't settle. I'm becoming someone who follows through on their commitments, Write that down too. And then, and this is the most important part, start living like that person today. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Today. Make one decision that aligns with your new identity. Just one. Maybe it's saying no to something you'd normally say yes to. Maybe it's going to the gym even though you don't feel like it. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting. Maybe it's opening a savings account. It doesn't matter how small it is. What matters is that you're casting a vote for the new you. And then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Because identity isn't built in a single moment of inspiration. It's built through consistent, repeated action over time. It's built through showing up for yourself, even when no one's watching, even when it's hard, even when you don't see immediate results. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to slip up. You're going to have days where you fall back into old patterns, where you say yes when you should have said no, where you skip the gym, where you spend money you shouldn't have spent. And when that happens, you're going to want to give up. You're going to think, see, I can't change. I'm always going to be this way. But that's a lie. One slip-up doesn't erase your progress. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means you're human. What matters is what you do next. Do you use that slip-up as an excuse to completely abandon your new identity? Or do you acknowledge it, learn from it, and get back on track? Because the difference between people who successfully rebuild their identity and people who don't isn't that one group never messes up. It's that one group gets back up every single time. Let me tell you what happens when you truly commit to rebuilding your identity. People start to notice. They'll say things like, "You seem different. You've changed. What's going on with you?" And at first, you might not even know how to respond because you feel different, but you can't quite articulate it yet. But over time, the changes become undeniable. You carry yourself differently. You make different choices. You attract different opportunities. You show up differently in every area of your life. And the best part? The problems that used to plague you start to shrink. Not because your circumstances magically improved, but because you've become someone who's equipped to handle them. That relationship drama that used to consume you, you don't engage with it anymore because you're someone with boundaries. That job you hated, you either find the confidence to leave or the skills to excel. That insecurity that held you back, you work through it because you're someone who faces their fears. This is what rebuilding your identity does. It doesn't just change your life, it changes you. And when you change, everything else follows. So don't just fix your situation, transform your identity. Because your situation is temporary, but your identity, that's the foundation everything else is built on. Get that right, and everything else falls into place. All right, let's talk about pain. Real pain. The kind that knocks the wind out of you. The kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew. The kind that keeps you up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering how you're supposed to move forward when you can barely breathe. We've all been there, and if you haven't yet, you will be. Because pain is not optional in this life. It's not something you can avoid by being good enough, smart enough, or careful enough. Pain finds everyone eventually. But here's what separates people who rebuild their lives from people who stay broken. It's not whether they experience pain, it's what they do with it. Because pain, as brutal as it is never just pain. It's always carrying something else with it. A lesson, a truth, a catalyst for change. The question is, are you willing to look for it? Or are you going to let the pain destroy you without extracting any value from it? Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds like toxic positivity, like you're saying I should be grateful for my pain or pretend it's a gift. And no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Your pain is real, it's valid, it sucks, and you have every right to feel angry, sad, betrayed, devastated, or whatever emotion is coming up. You don't have to be grateful for it. You don't have to smile through it. You don't have to pretend it's okay. But what I am saying is this. Once you've felt the pain, once you've cried the tears, once you've screamed into the void, then what? Do you set up camp there? Do you build a house in your grief and decide that's just where you live now? Or do you eventually ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Because here's the truth. Every painful experience you've ever had was trying to show you something. Maybe it was showing you what you don't want. Maybe it was showing you what you deserve. Maybe it was showing you a pattern you keep repeating. Maybe it was showing you a strength you didn't know you had. But it was always showing you something, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. And if you miss it, you'll have to learn it the hard way all over again. Let me give you an example. Let's say you go through a brutal breakup. Someone you loved, someone you trusted, someone you built a future with, they're just gone. And it wrecks you. You can't eat. You can't sleep. You're cycling through anger, sadness, denial, bargaining, the whole thing. And for weeks, maybe months, that's all you can do. Just survive. Just get through each day. And that's okay. That's the grieving process. You need to feel it. But eventually, if you want to rebuild, you have to shift from why did this happen to what can I learn from this? And that's when the real work begins. Maybe you start to notice patterns. Maybe you realize you ignored red flags because you were afraid of being alone. Maybe you realize you gave too much of yourself and lost your identity in the process. Maybe you realize you stayed way longer than you should have because you were hoping they'd change. Maybe you realize you don't actually know what a healthy relationship looks like because you've never seen one. These realizations hurt. Sometimes they hurt more than the breakup itself. Because you're not just mourning the loss of the relationship, you're also facing the uncomfortable truth that you played a role in how it went down. And that's hard. It's easier to blame the other person, to make them the villain and yourself the victim. But real growth happens when you can look at the situation honestly and say, yes, they hurt me, but I also allowed behaviors I shouldn't have. I also ignored my intuition. I also settled for less than I deserved. That's not about blaming yourself. It's about empowering yourself, because once you see your role in the pattern, you can change it. You can make different choices next time. You can set better boundaries. You can recognize red flags earlier. You can walk away sooner. You're not doomed to repeat the same painful experiences over and over unless you refuse to learn from them. Here's another example. Let's say you lose your job. Maybe you got laid off. Maybe you got fired. Maybe the company went under. Whatever the reason, you're suddenly unemployed, and it feels like the ground just disappeared beneath your feet. You're scared. You're embarrassed. You're angry. And yeah, you should feel all of that. Losing your job is traumatic, especially if your identity was tied to it. But after the initial shock wears off, you have a choice. You can spend the next 6 months wallowing in self-pity, replaying what went wrong, blaming your boss or the economy or bad luck. Or you can ask, what is this experience teaching me? Maybe it's teaching you that you were playing it too safe, that you stayed in a job you hated because it was comfortable. Maybe it's teaching you that you need to upskill, to become more valuable, to diversify your income. Maybe it's teaching you that you put all your eggs in one basket and now you need a backup plan. Maybe it's teaching you that your worth isn't tied to your job title. Whatever the lesson is, it's there. And if you learn it, you'll come out of this stronger, more prepared, more resilient. And if you don't, you'll probably end up in another job you hate or another situation where you're vulnerable because you didn't address the root issue. Now, I want to be clear about something. Learning from pain doesn't mean the pain was worth it. It doesn't mean you deserved it. It doesn't mean it was fair. Life isn't fair. Bad things happen to good people all the time. And you can acknowledge that while also refusing to let the pain be wasted. You can say, this shouldn't have happened, but since it did, I'm going to make damn sure I get something valuable out of it. Here's what I've learned. Pain has a way of stripping away all the BS. When you're going through something hard, you can't hide from yourself anymore. You can't pretend. You can't perform. You're forced to confront who you really are, what you really want, what you're really capable of. And that's terrifying. But it's also liberating. Because once you see yourself clearly, flaws and all, you can start building something real. Pain also reveals who your real people are. When everything's going well, everyone wants to be around you. But when you're struggling, that's when you see who actually shows up, who checks in, who listens without judgment, who offers help without expecting anything in return. And yeah, some people will disappoint you. People you thought would be there won't be. But some people will surprise you. They'll step up in ways you never expected. And that's a gift, even if it comes wrapped in pain. Let me share something with you. A few years ago, I went through one of the darkest periods of my life. Everything that could go wrong did. Health issues, financial stress, relationship drama, loss. It felt like the universe was just piling it on. And for a while, I was so deep in the pain that I couldn't see anything else. I was angry. I was bitter. I kept asking, why me? What did I do to deserve this? But then, somewhere in the middle of it all, something shifted. I remember sitting alone one night, exhausted from crying, and I thought, okay, this is happening. I can't change it. So what am I supposed to learn from this? And at first, I didn't have an answer, but I kept asking. And slowly, things started to click. I realized I'd been living reactively, not proactively. I'd been avoiding hard conversations, letting problems fester instead of addressing them. I'd been prioritizing everyone else's needs over my own until I had nothing left to give. I'd been so afraid of failure that I wasn't taking risks. I'd been playing small, and life, in its brutal way, was forcing me to confront all of that. And here's the crazy part. Once I started learning the lessons, once I started making changes based on what I was discovering, things started to shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually. I started setting boundaries. I started speaking up. I started taking care of myself. I started taking calculated risks. And my life started to reflect those changes. New opportunities appeared, better relationships formed. I felt more in control, more confident, more alive. Would I go back and erase that painful period? Honestly, I don't know. Because as much as it hurt, it also transformed me. It made me who I am now, and I like who I am now. I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I'm more compassionate, I'm more resilient. I wouldn't have any of that if I hadn't gone through the fire. Now, does that mean I'm glad it happened? Not exactly. But I'm grateful for what it taught me. And that's the balance you have to find. You don't have to be grateful for the pain itself, but you can be grateful for the growth it forced you into. Here's another thing about pain. It's a great BS detector. When you're in the middle of a breakdown, you don't have the energy for surface level stuff. You can't pretend to care about things that don't actually matter. You're forced to get real about your priorities. What actually matters to you? What do you actually want? What are you actually willing to fight for? Pain cuts through all the noise and forces you to focus on what's essential. And that clarity is powerful. Because once you know what really matters, you can start building your life around it. You can stop wasting time on things that don't align with your values. You can stop saying yes to things you don't care about. You can stop pretending to be someone you're not. You can just be and build from there. Let's talk about resilience for a second. Resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. And you build it through pain. Every time you go through something hard and you survive it, you prove to yourself that you can handle hard things. And that proof builds confidence. It builds strength. It builds resilience. Think about it. The first time you went through a breakup, it probably felt like the end of the world. You thought you'd never recover, but you did. And the next time, while it still hurt, you knew you'd survive because you'd done it before. Same thing with losing a job, or failing at something important, or facing rejection. The first time is brutal. But each time after that, you have a little more confidence, a little more perspective, a little more resilience. That's what pain does. It builds your capacity to handle more. It expands your emotional range. It teaches you that you're stronger than you think. And that's not some cliche. That's a real, tangible thing. You literally become more capable of handling adversity because you've done it before. Now, let's talk about the flip side. What happens when you don't learn from your pain? When you just numb it, avoid it, or let it consume you without extracting any value? You stay stuck. You repeat the same patterns. You make the same mistakes. You end up in the same situations with different people. And you wonder why your life never changes. I see this all the time. People who go from one toxic relationship to another because they never stop to ask, what role am I playing in this pattern? People who keep getting fired or quitting jobs because they never address their work ethic or their attitude or their skills. People who stay broke because they never learn to manage money. People who stay unhealthy because they never learn discipline. The pain keeps showing up over and over, trying to teach the same lesson. But they're not listening. And look, I get it. Learning from pain is hard. It requires you to be vulnerable, to be honest with yourself, to admit that maybe you're not the victim you thought you were. Maybe you're partly responsible. Maybe you need to change. and that's uncomfortable. It's way easier to just blame external circumstances and move on without doing the internal work. But here's the cost of that. You never actually move on. You just move sideways. You stay stuck in the same chapter, just with different characters. And eventually, that gets exhausting. Eventually, you realize you're 35 or 45 or 55, and you're still dealing with the same issues you were dealing with at 25, and that's when the regret sets in. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you're going through something painful, and there will be a next time, give yourself permission to feel it fully. Don't rush through it. Don't numb it. Don't pretend it's not happening. Sit with it. Cry about it. Rage about it. Whatever you need to do. But then, when you're ready, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? And be honest. Really honest. Not the easy answer. Not the answer that makes you feel better. The real answer. The one that might make you uncomfortable. Because that's where the gold is. That's where the growth is. That's where the transformation is. Write it down if you need to. Journal about it. Talk to a therapist. Talk to a trusted friend. But get clear on the lesson. And then, this is crucial. Apply it. Change your behavior. Make different choices. Don't just intellectually understand the lesson. Live it. Because knowledge without application is useless. Here's the beautiful part. When you start doing this consistently, when you start treating every painful experience as a teacher instead of an enemy, your entire relationship with adversity changes. You stop fearing it as much. You stop feeling like a victim. You start feeling like a student. And students don't stay stuck. Students evolve. You also start to notice that the same lessons stop showing up. Because once you learn them, life doesn't need to keep teaching them. You move on to new challenges, new lessons, new levels. And yeah, those will be hard too. But you'll be more equipped to handle them because you've built the skill of learning from pain. Let me ask you something. Think back to the most painful experience of your life. Maybe it was a breakup. Maybe it was a loss. Maybe it was a failure. Whatever it was, I'm guessing at the time it felt unbearable, like you wouldn't survive it. But you did. You're here, reading this, so you survived. Now ask yourself, what did that experience teach you? How did it change you? What strengths did you discover? What patterns did you break? What clarity did you gain? If you're being honest, you'll probably realize that as much as it hurt, it also shaped you in important ways. Maybe it made you more empathetic. Maybe it made you braver. Maybe it made you wiser. Maybe it showed you what you're truly capable of. That's the power of pain as a lesson. It doesn't just hurt you, it also builds you. And the more you lean into that, the more you'll start to see every difficult experience not as a punishment, but as preparation. Preparation for the next level of your life. Preparation for the person you're becoming. So don't waste your pain. Don't let it break you without building you. Don't let it hurt you without teaching you. Because if you do, you're going through all that suffering for nothing. And that's the real tragedy. Not that you experienced pain. We all do. But that you experienced it and came out the other side unchanged. Learn the lesson. Grow from the pain. Become the person who's capable of handling whatever comes next. Because when you do that, you're not just surviving. You're evolving. And that's when your life truly starts to transform. So here we are, the final piece. We've covered a lot of ground together. We've talked about acceptance, about letting go of the life you thought you'd have and making peace with where you actually are. We've talked about shifting from why me to what now, about taking back control and becoming the creator of your life instead of the victim. We've talked about cutting off the people who drain your energy and protecting your peace like your life depends on it. We've talked about rebuilding your identity, not just your situation, because that's where real transformation happens. And we've talked about extracting lessons from your pain so it doesn't go to waste. Now it's time to bring it all together. Because here's the truth. Everything we've discussed isn't just theory. It's not just feel-good advice that sounds nice, but doesn't actually work in real life. This is the blueprint. This is the path. And thousands of people have walked it before you. They've gone from rock bottom to rebuilt, from broken to whole, from stuck to unstoppable. And the only difference between them and the people who stay stuck isn't talent or luck or circumstances. It's the decision to do the work. So let's talk about what it actually looks like to rebuild your life. Not in some abstract, inspirational quote kind of way, but in a practical, day-to-day, this is what you actually do kind of way. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. And you're not here to be entertained. You're here to transform. First things first, you have to make a decision, not a wish, not a hope, a decision, a real, committed, non-negotiable decision that you're done living the way you've been living, that you're done accepting less than you deserve, that you're done making excuses, that you're done waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect circumstances or the perfect version of yourself. You're starting now, today, with what you have, where you are, messy and imperfect and scared and uncertain. You're starting anyway, because here's what most people don't realize. You don't need to have it all figured out to start. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know every step of the journey. You just need to take the first step, and then the next one, and then the next one. The path reveals itself as you walk it. But you have to actually start walking. So what does that first step look like? It's different for everyone, but it usually involves one of these things: ending something. Maybe it's a toxic relationship. Maybe it's a job that's draining your soul. Maybe it's a habit that's keeping you stuck. Maybe it's a belief that's holding you back. Whatever it is, you know what it is. You've known for a while. You've just been avoiding it because ending things is scary. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go of what's no longer serving you, even if you don't know what comes next. Starting something, maybe it's therapy. Maybe it's a new morning routine. Maybe it's a side project you've been putting off. Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a goal you've been too scared to pursue. Whatever it is, start it. Imperfectly, messily. Just start. Changing something. Maybe it's your environment. Maybe it's your schedule. Maybe it's your circle. Maybe it's your mindset. Maybe it's your standards. Look at your life right now and ask yourself, what needs to change? And then change it. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. The point is, do something. Take action. Because action creates momentum, and momentum creates confidence, and confidence creates more action. It's a virtuous cycle. But it only starts when you take that first step. Now, let's talk about what happens after you start. Because starting is hard, but continuing is harder. The first few days, you're running on motivation. You're excited, you're hopeful, you're energized by the newness of it all. But then the honeymoon phase wears off. The motivation fades, the excitement dims, and you're left with the reality of the daily grind, the unglamorous, repetitive, sometimes boring work of showing up day after day, even when you don't feel like it. This is where most people quit. They hit the first plateau, or the first setback, or the first moment where it feels like nothing's working, and they throw in the towel. They say, "See, I knew it wouldn't work. I knew I couldn't change." And they go right back to their old patterns. But here's what you need to understand. That moment, the moment when it gets hard, when you want to quit, when you're not seeing results yet, that's not a sign that it's not working. That's a test. That's life asking you, how bad do you really want this? And your response to that question determines everything. Because the people who successfully rebuild their lives aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who struggle and keep going anyway. They're the ones who have bad days and still show up the next day. They're the ones who fall off track and get back on track without beating themselves up. They're the ones who understand that progress isn't linear, that there will be setbacks, that healing is messy, that growth is uncomfortable, but they do it anyway. So how do you keep going when it gets hard? Here's what works. Remember your why. Why are you doing this? What's at stake if you don't change? What's possible if you do? Get crystal clear on this. Write it down. Look at it every day. Because when motivation fades, and it will, your why is what keeps you going. Celebrate small wins. You don't have to wait until you've completely transformed your life to feel good about your progress. Celebrate the small stuff. You set a boundary? That's a win. You said no to something that doesn't serve you? That's a win. You made it through a hard day without falling back into old patterns? That's a win. Acknowledge your progress, no matter how small, because those small wins add up to massive transformation over time. Find your people. Surround yourself with people who are also committed to growth. People who get it. People who won't let you quit on yourself. People who will call you out when you're making excuses and cheer you on when you're winning. You can't do this alone, and you don't have to. Track your progress. Keep a journal, take photos, record voice notes, whatever works for you. Because in the moment, it's hard to see how far you've come. But when you look back at where you were 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, you'll be amazed at how much you've grown. Be kind to yourself. This is crucial. You're going to mess up. You're going to have days where you feel like you made zero progress. Days where you fall back into old habits. Days where you doubt everything. And when that happens, don't beat yourself up. Don't spiral into self-criticism. Just acknowledge it, learn from it, and keep moving forward. You're human. Humans make mistakes. What separates successful people from everyone else isn't that they never fail. It's that they don't let failure define them. Now let's talk about what rebuilding your life actually creates. Because this isn't just about fixing what's broken. This is about building something better than what you had before. And I want to be specific about what that looks like so you know what you're working toward. Freedom. Not the kind of freedom that means you don't have responsibilities or challenges, but the kind of freedom that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life throws at you. The freedom that comes from not being controlled by your past or other people's opinions or your own fear. The freedom to make choices based on what you actually want, not what you think you should want. Peace, real peace. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of inner calm, even when things are chaotic. The kind of peace that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you will and won't tolerate. The kind of peace that comes from no longer fighting reality, but accepting it and working with it. Confidence, not arrogance, not the fake it till you make it kind, but real, earned confidence. The kind that comes from proving to yourself over and over that you can do hard things. The kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself. The kind that comes from knowing that even when you fail, you'll get back up. Purpose, a sense that your life matters, that you're moving toward something meaningful, that you're not just existing, but actually living, that you have something to contribute, that your experiences, even the painful ones, have value, that you're here for a reason. Joy, real joy, not the fleeting happiness that comes from external circumstances, but the deep, abiding joy that comes from being aligned with yourself, from living authentically, from being surrounded by people who genuinely care about you, from pursuing things that light you up, from knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. This is what's on the other side of the work. This is what you're rebuilding toward. And I need you to believe that it's possible for you, not just for other people, for you, because it is. Let me share a story with you. There's a woman I know. Let's call her Sarah. A few years ago, Sarah's life fell apart. She went through a devastating divorce, lost her job, had to move back in with her parents in her late 30s. She was humiliated, ashamed, broken. For months, she barely got out of bed. She felt like a failure, like her life was over. But then something shifted. She got tired of feeling sorry for herself. She got tired of being stuck. So she made a decision. She didn't know how she was going to rebuild her life, but she knew she was going to try. So she started small. She started going for walks every morning, just to get out of the house, to clear her head. Then she started journaling, processing everything she'd been through. Then she started therapy, working through the pain. Then she started applying for jobs, even though she was terrified of rejection. And slowly, so slowly that she almost didn't notice at first, things started to change. She got a job, not her dream job, but a job. She started saving money. She moved into her own apartment. She started dating again. She made new friends. She discovered new hobbies. She set new goals. And 3 years later, her life looked completely different. Not perfect, but better. So much better. And here's what she told me recently. I'm grateful for the breakdown. I never thought I'd say that, but I am. Because the person I was before, she was playing small. She was settling. She was living to someone else's idea of what her life should look like. And it took everything falling apart for me to realize that. Now, I'm living my life on my terms, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. That's what rebuilding your life can do. It doesn't just restore what you lost. It gives you something better, something more authentic, something more aligned with who you actually are, not who you thought you were supposed to be. But here's the thing. Sarah's story isn't special. It's not rare. I could tell you 100 stories just like it. People who hit rock bottom and rebuilt. People who thought their life was over and then created their best chapter yet. People who were broken and became whole. people who were stuck and became unstoppable. The only difference between them and the people who stay stuck, they decided to do the work. So now the question is, are you going to do the work? Are you going to make the decision? Are you going to take the first step? Are you going to keep going even when it gets hard? Are you going to learn from your pain instead of letting it destroy you? Are you going to rebuild your identity, not just your situation? Are you going to protect your energy and cut off what's draining you? Are you going to shift from victim to creator? Because if you do, if you really commit to this, your life will change. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily, powerfully, permanently. And one day, maybe a year from now, maybe 5 years from now, you'll look back at this moment and you'll think, that was the turning point. That was when everything changed. So here's what I want you to do right now. Not later. Not when you're ready. Right now. Step 1. Write down one thing you're going to end. One thing you're going to start. And one thing you're going to change. Be specific. Not, I'm going to be healthier, but I'm going to work out 3 times this week. Not, I'm going to set boundaries, but I'm going to tell my friend I can't always be available when she needs to vent. Step 2, tell someone. Share your commitment with a friend, a family member, a therapist, someone. Make it real. Make it public. Give yourself accountability. Step 3, take the first action today, not tomorrow. Today, even if it's tiny, even if it's imperfect, just do something. And then tomorrow, do it again. And the next day. And the day after that. Build momentum. Build consistency. Build your new life one decision at a time. I want to leave you with one final thought. Rebuilding your life is not about becoming a different person. It's about becoming more yourself. The most authentic, powerful, aligned version of yourself. The version that's been buried under trauma and fear and other people's expectations and your own self-doubt. That version is still in there. And this process, this painful, beautiful, transformative process, is just about clearing away everything that's not you so the real you can emerge. You're not broken. You're breaking open. You're not falling apart. You're falling into place. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. And the life you're about to build, it's going to be better than anything you've lost. Because it's going to be real. It's going to be yours. And it's going to be worth every single moment of the struggle it took to get there. So go. Start rebuilding. Start today. Start messy. Start scared. Start imperfect. Just start. Because you deserve a life that feels good, a life that's aligned, a life that's yours. And the only person who can create that life is you. Your old life is over. And that's not a tragedy. It's an opportunity, the biggest opportunity of your life, to rebuild, to reinvent, to rise. So take it, run with it, and don't look back. You've got this. I believe in you. And soon you'll believe in yourself again too. Now go build something beautiful.